And I hope we have once again reminded people that man is not free unless government is limited. There's a clear cause and effect here that is as neat and predictable as a law of physics. As government expands, liberty contracts.
From this day forward, it's going to be only America first. America first.
The Liberty Podcast is brought to you by Proven Arms and Outfitters, specializing in rifles, pistols, tactical gear, and more. Learn more at ProvenOutfitters.com.
Well, welcome back to the Liberty Podcast. It's May 16, 2024. We're back again in the cozy, sun-drenched studio here beneath the pines. We are delighted, as always, that you've joined us for our podcast, which is presented, as always, by Proven Arms and Outfitters. They specialize in rifles, pistols, tactical gear, and a lot more. Learn all about them at ProvenOutfitters.com. ProvenOutfitters.com. All right, we are loaded with content today, and the curation process has been arduous, but we have narrowed it down to the key insights and stories that are pressing as our culture erodes around us. Now, I think one of the leading cultural analysts and authors of our time is a very intelligent and insightful woman named Heather McDonald. She has written a piece which answers a question that may have been troubling many of us, especially those of us who pay attention, which is, how has it been that all of this pro-Hamas, pro-Palestine fervor has been bubbling up and erupting on these college campuses from coast to coast, while meanwhile, our federal government and the Biden regime essentially has stood by, let it play out as if it's perfectly normal to celebrate Iran-backed terrorists who slaughter innocent Jews and to call for the elimination of those Jews into the future, into perpetuity. Well, let's listen to this wonderful author, Heather McDonald. This hits it right on the head. Pro-Hamas hysteria, she writes, is the foreseeable outcome of a belief system dominant not only in academia, but also in Biden's own administration. I bet you never thought that would come to the fore. It is a belief system in which the West is damned as, quote, systemically racist, end quote, and the world is divided between marginalized groups and the white male heterosexual power structure that oppresses them. Campus anti-Semitism will not stop until the university is transformed and the Democratic Party rejects identity politics. In other words, not anytime soon. She goes on. The stunningly incoherent alliances that have sprung up since 7 October and the terror attacks in Israel can only be understood in the context of academic theory. Queers and radical feminists for Palestine would seem to be logical impossibilities, but for the dominance of such concepts as anti-whiteness and intersectionality. A sampling of Columbia University's anti-whiteness offerings includes an uprooting whiteness group, a deconstructing whiteness workshop, and an unlearning whiteness research award from the dean. Other colleges, no doubt, provide a similar menu. According to the university worldview, whites in the West, the two categories, by the way, are interchangeable, are responsible for everything wrong with the world, from inequality to poverty. Persons of color are the antidote. Heterosexuality and maleness, like me, are subcategories of whiteness against which the intersectional coalition of queers, radical feminists, and members of the global South must mobilize. Israel today is hated as the embodiment of Western civilization. Its modernity and economic success in a region where both are largely absent, true, mark it out as hegemonic and illegitimate. Of course, the enemy of my enemy logic only works in one direction. Queers for Palestine But despite their common nemesis, it is unlikely that Palestine is for queers. Of course not. They'd be beheaded on the spot. They showed up, waltzed in, to Gaza. Are you kidding me? Anyway, great piece by, I won't read any more of it, but it makes some excellent points. And you can find her writings all over the place. Just Google Heather MacDonald. Heather MacDonald. M-A-C Donald, not M-C. Okay? Now, this story is viral, ladies and gentlemen. And I think for a good reason, actually. I really do. Last weekend, we saw something that we rarely see. We saw a professional athlete espousing American values and traditions and Judeo-Christian perspectives. The commencement speaker at Kansas's Benedictine College, a private Catholic liberal arts school, congratulated the women receiving degrees and said most of them were probably more excited about getting married and having children. Harris Butker, the kicker for the Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs, is getting attention for those and other comments last weekend in which he said some Catholic leaders were, quote, pushing dangerous gender ideologies into the youth of America, which I think is an appropriate point to make at a Catholic university during commencement. Butker, who made his conservative Catholic beliefs well known, also assailed Pride Month, a particularly important time for the LGBTQ plus rights movement. Well, they say it's an important time. It's just another cluttered up calendar for the rest of us. And also President Joe Biden's stance on abortion. I think it is you, the women, who have had the most diabolical lies told to you, Butker said. Some of you may go on to lead successful careers in the world, but I would venture to guess that the majority of you are most excited about your marriage and the children you will bring into the world. Butker said his wife embraced, quote, one of the most important titles of all, wait for it, homemaker. Here's a couple that is celebrating the nuclear family, one of the most precious elements of life in America. Of course, his comments have drawn backlash on social media. And I could go into this. Lisa Guerrero, a former NFL sideline reporter, there's good work if you can get it, who now works for Inside Edition, which is tabloid TV, called out Butker and the NFL in her reaction. She posted, hey, NFL, if you want to continue to grow your female fan base and any other marginalized group, come get your boy. So, are you kidding me? I mean, here's a guy who is speaking from the heart. And by the way, the audience was not squirming and booing and catcalling. They were soaking it up. They loved it. Now, here's the thing that really gets me, okay? We live in a world where the NFL is typically defined by, self-absorbed celebrities or criminal thugs. And we finally get somebody who has a well-formed brain and a strong religious core and who embraces American values, and he's now a parasite? Are you kidding me? Our friend Charlie Kirk, writing for Blaze Media. Here's an interesting point that he makes. Around 50 NFL players are arrested on average every year. Did you know that? I was shocked by that number. Since 2000, the Kansas City Chiefs have supplied 41 of those arrests, tied for fourth in the league. NFL players' arrests include 129 cases of domestic violence, 120 assault or battery cases, and even a handful of murder and homicide cases. The number of NFL players who have destroyed their lives with drugs and alcohol, or who have fathered children they don't raise or have never even seen, is too many to count. The NFL and the press do little and say little about the many malefactors of the football world. Instead, they have bigger fish to fry. Fish like Kansas City Chiefs kicker Harrison Butker. Right now, Butker is being denounced by the NFL and going through a trial by media for encouraging young women to live happy and fulfilling lives. Whoops. Apparently, he would have been better off punching one of them in the face or getting 2 or 3 of them pregnant. Plenty of his fellow players do that without headline news coverage. No kidding. For example, I give you another NFL player recently making news for all of the wrong reasons. Arrest warrants were issued for NFL player and North Texas native Rashee Rice and another driver in connection with a hit and run crash on Central Expressway in Dallas that injured 4 people. This was on March 30th. Police allege that Rice, 23, and another driver, Theodore Knox, were speeding along U.S. Highway 75 near University Boulevard in a Lamborghini SUV and a Corvette when they caused a chain reaction crash involving 4 other vehicles that were recorded on a witness's dash cam. Wow. Then, get this, 5 days after the crash, Texas Senator Royce West, a Democrat from Dallas, who represents Rice in his district, gave a statement admitting his clients he told the police he was driving one of the luxury sports cars. 5 days after the fact, Rice was nowhere to be found. By the way, he plays for the Kansas City Chiefs. Maybe Harris Butker will use his firm foot and kick this guy in the butt, since he is, after all, an accomplished place kicker. Now, how about our boy Tom Brady? Here's another real role model, right? Here's a guy who is complaining about the Netflix roast of him that was supposed to be this big, monumental entertainment event where they were going to roast Tom Brady as he begins his new career as an NFL broadcaster for Fox Sports. Well, he was all whiny after that because things were said that hurt his feelings and made fun of his ex-wife, the supermodel Gisele Bündchen. But, listen to Brady's track record. Here's his litany of relationships. Started dating actress Bridget Moynihan in early 2004 after he won his second Super Bowl with the New England Patriots. And Bridget was starring on the hit show Sex and the City. Remember that one? Together, they attended the 2006 Met Gala. In a 60 Minutes interview, Tom revealed what Bridget meant to him in his relationship. But the two ended their relationship in December 2006, so about, a little less than 3 years later. A rep at the time told People magazine that they amicably ended their 3-year relationship. And 3 months later, get this, Bridget was expecting Tom's baby. Oh, what an inconvenience for Tom. Bridget is over 3 months pregnant, her agent said. Former boyfriend Tom Brady is the father. At the time, Tom started to date Gisele Bündchen. Bridget gave birth to John Edward Moynihan in August 2007. Now, currently, Tom and his supermodel wife with children split after a 13-year marriage. He's now reportedly dating Irina Shayk, according to multiple sources. TMZ broke the news after they posted pictures of the two getting cozy in Tom's car. But anyway, again, no commitment to family and children and home stability from this so-called superstar. I'll take the place kicker all day of the week. And by the way, he has a better chance of winning some big games in the clutch than some of these quarterbacks. And certainly wide receiver Rashee Rice, the AWOL automobile assassin, you might say. All right, let's move on, because we got stories. Now, you knew this was inevitable, or you should have. The Biden regime has gone about the business of the last 3 years of doing very little, but continuing to poison our culture. So what have they gotten their talons into now? Title IX. Now, Title IX goes back like 50 years ago, and it was originally written and made law simply to assure a reasonable level of equality for women in sports, intercollegiate sports, club sports, public education sports, just sports across the board. And, it was largely, a good thing. And it obviously has had a positive effect in that regard. But now Title IX is being hijacked again and again and again. And now they have come for Title IX, the LGBTQ community, to use Title IX to demand equality for their little fringe part of the population. So what happens? These fringe groups start popping up all over the place, including one here in Moore County. It's called PFLAG of Southern Pines, a newly formed LGBTQ plus group, and another one called Public School Advocates. They both recently filed official Title IX complaints against Moore County schools, the keepers of public schools here in the county, with the U.S. Department of Education's Office of Civil Rights. Ooh. Title IX of the Education Amendments is a federal law against sexual discrimination in schools. These two groups, in their filing, allege that Moore County Schools is discriminating by targeting LGBTQ content for censorship and removal from instruction. Well, what is this really about? What it's really about is that they are steamed that last year in 2023, the Moore County Board of Education adopted a Parents' Bill of Rights. Now, get this. It allows parents to supervise reading selections, view assessments of their children, impose religious exemptions on behalf of their children, and view data collection on their children. Gee, what an idea of allowing and actually enforcing that parents be involved and have an active role in their children's public education. This is such a no-brainer that shortly after Moore County Schools adopted it, the North Carolina State Legislature passed a Parents' Bill of Rights. But what's the other intent of this? It's very important. The intent of it is to make sure that woke educators and administrators do not aid and abet innocent, immature children from pursuing the path of gender transitioning and, in some extreme cases, gender affirming surgery. In other words, mutilation of their reproductive organs. Yes, it's happening even in high schools. And a lot of these teachers and administrators believe that by hiding this from the parents, they are doing a favor for these children who are, obviously mentally challenged and think the only way to overcome their dysphoria is to proceed against the wishes of their parents in many cases, with the help secretly of parents and teachers and administrators. This is unbelievable. Imagine being a teacher and having to remove books with gay parents, said a member of one of the groups. Well, the reason you're doing that, according to the Parent Bill of Rights, is they don't want kids, kindergarten through grade 4, reading books about anything to do with alternative sexualizations, alternative lifestyles. They'll get to that soon enough. Don't we know that for sure? My goodness. So when this passed, anyway, we're going to see what happens. This is just the beginning. This is just the beginning. There are going to be complaints against school boards and school districts all across this country. There's going to be copycat complaints filed again and again and again as the LGBTQ community continues to want to make public education about a fringe group of people claiming that they can't just go to school and function with the rest of the kids because they're constantly being oppressed by all these heterosexuals. It's absurd, and it's going to keep happening. But what the kids are saying, and what these groups that are supporting these kids, is that they believe that administrators should support the LGBT group of students at all times, no matter what. Well, yeah, they can support them, but they don't have to conspire with them to take steps that will be life-changing without the knowledge of their parents. And you might argue, well, some of these kids have lousy parents or absentee parents. Well, okay, case-by-case basis, perhaps. Now, supporters, this is the logic of the Parents' Bill of Rights, and I salute the school board for taking this step last year. Supporters of the Bill of Rights have said that it prevents school employees from, quote, hiding, end quote, trans children from their families or influencing students toward transitioning. Yeah, that is not the role of an educator. It simply is not. Now, If a kid is seeking to transition or thinking about it or talking about it, involve the parents, and talk it through and do what we've always done as parents when our children are struggling with grades, struggling with relationships. Sure, there's bullying, struggling with that, all kinds of things that children, especially as they grow older and get into high school, begin to encounter. Yes, we know it's not a paradise in public education. Of course not. But the parents should have an active and meaningful role in every step of the way. Every step of the way. So just stand by, because we're going to be talking about this again and again and again and again. Okay, now the narrative is brewing. What's 6 months from now? Oh, a presidential election in which, what? The incumbent, doddering Joe Biden, is starting to do very poorly in many key polls, including one partially supported by the New York Times. The New York Times, the official House organ of the left. So panic is breaking out. So what's happening? Narratives are brewing. And what is one of them that you should watch very closely? 2 words: bird flu. Okay, bird flu. In the last week, I have encountered 3 different entities that all of a sudden are talking about the inherent dangers of bird flu, even though, as far as we know, there was 1 case of bird flu transferring to a human 2 months ago at a ranch somewhere in the United States. 1 case. And it's very unprecedented, but it's not unprecedented in human history, okay? How about this now? We've got the former director of the CDC, Robert Redfield. And by the way, CDC is an entirely discredited organization coming out of the pandemic. But nonetheless, he is sounding the alarm. He has issued, quote, a grim warning about the dangers of gain-of-function research, which is research that basically intentionally tries to make a virus more viral so that scientists can figure out what would happen if it was to ever get loose, like the one out of the Wuhan lab in China, which caused the global pandemic. Okay, Dr. Redfield, who in the past railed against the use of tax dollars for gain-of-function research, smart, at the Chinese virus lab at the heart of COVID-19, is once again sounding the alarm on the dangers of risky scientific experiments going badly. In a recent interview, Dr. Redfield recalled a recent column he wrote in the Wall Street Journal calling for a moratorium on gain-of-function research. But you have to wonder, pardon me while I have a light libation, you have to wonder, why now? Why now? And why bird flu now? Well, I'll tell you why. Because I think there is a little bit of narrative building going on here, so that if things get a little dicey for the Biden campaign come, October, November, there might have to be a sudden bird flu lockdown, just to flatten the curve, just out of an abundance of caution. And you know what happened to our voting and election norms the last time around? They were thrown out the window. Mail-in ballots ruled the day and undoubtedly led to voter fraud and the demise of election integrity across the fruited plain of this country, my friends. Here's another example. This is just too much. The H5N1 bird flu, highly infectious and deadly in birds, has been around for nearly 3 decades, but recently it has been changing in ways that raise alarms for many scientists and public health officials, writes Jamie Hansen for Stanford Medicine. Okay. In particular, the recent spread of the virus among dairy cows and the discovery of genetic traces of the virus in 1 in 5 what? Milk samples have sparked concerns that the virus may become more transmissible to humans. While the public may be weary of pandemic news following 4 years of COVID-19, no kidding, weary, now is a critical time for scientists, public health officials, and the general public to take preventative action, said Michelle Berry, MD, director of the Stanford Center for Innovation in Global Health. The steps she recommends, including to protect and monitor the health of livestock and the people who care for them through a One Health approach. Doesn't that sound like the World Health Organization? The virus has the potential, she says, to seriously disrupt our agricultural supplies and also jump from other mammals to humans and become an epidemic or even a pandemic. Okay? So she's laying it out there. She clearly wants to be on the record here in May of 2024 so that, if the left needs to stir up a little fear and panic in a few months, they can turn to this May 2024 little declaration by the MD from Stanford and say, see, they knew back then. We should have paid more attention. And then along comes the great senator from Utah, Mitt Romney, the man who will never be president of the United States, thank God, calling upon Americans and the Biden administration and the federal government to take more seriously the looming threat of avian bird flu. So he takes to the cameras to whip up his own little frenzy for his constituents back in Utah. But of course it went, national because he's Mitt Romney, a senator of some renown, or maybe infamous renown, we might say. Anyway, I hate to be the guy even bringing this up, but, be vigilant, my friends. Be vigilant. Ever vigilant. All right. Now, speaking of the vigilance topic, you can't even take for granted anymore that the flags flying above state capitals across this country aren't in some way connected to something nefarious. Writes Jacqueline Toberoff, who is a frequent poster to a Substack blog. She writes, a symbol of Islam is suddenly appearing on flags all across America. Did you know that? Listen to this. The traditional 5-point American star is being erased and replaced with the 8-point Islamic symbol in what some believe is a threat to national security and a cultural coup d'etat. Because of my background in the military, these are the indicators we are trained to look for, said Donna Bergstrom, deputy chair of the Republican Party of Minnesota. Minnesota has just unveiled its new flag just in the past week, bearing an 8-point star much like those displayed on flags across the Islamic world. Wow. Quote, I was commissioned in the U.S. Marine Corps and served as a signals intelligence electronic warfare officer and as a general intelligence officer, said Bergstrom of the Minnesota GOP. When we have aspects of our national security and what we are going to stand for as Americans degraded or changed, this must be factored. Especially in this moment of time, changing the state's flag is not a good idea. I agree. The author says flags in the United States historically display only 5-point stars, like the U.S. flag, Old Glory. Yeah. A tradition dating back to the Betsy Ross flag of 1776. The American flag, with its 55-point stars, is ranked number 1 as the most recognizable in the world. Minnesota will become the first U.S. state displaying anything but 5-point stars treasured in American heritage. 8-point stars hold equal meaning in Islamic culture, tracing its importance first to Babylonian culture and then to scripture. The Quran, verse 69:17. On the day of judgment, on that day, 8 mighty angels will bear the throne of your Lord above them. For this reason, she writes, 8 is critical to Islamic history, culture, and art. The 8-point star is one of the most prominent symbols in Islam. But guess what? She says it doesn't end with Minnesota. Utah has recently approved an 8-point star on its flag, but has delayed the unfurling of it because there's quite an outcry in Mormon Utah, you might imagine. But then the reporter has done some research and finds there are flags all over the country in different municipalities with the 8-point Islamic symbol. Hutchinson, Kansas. Aberdeen, South Dakota. Kent, Ohio, Norman, Oklahoma, Wheeling, West Virginia, Springfield, Missouri, in about the reddest state there is, and the hometown of my spouse. I have visited there many times. This is the Bible Belt in Springfield, southwestern Missouri. Also, flags are in Reno, Nevada, and Pocatello, Idaho. Wow. What is the probability that all these cities and states ended up with an Islamic 8-point star symbol? It's statistically next to impossible. Both states appeared committed beyond probability to making sure this Islamic-style symbol appeared on their new flags. Wow. So once again, we have to remain vigilant. It's coming at us from every direction. Our country is being invaded and poisoned from within. It's happening in our lifetime. As we leave, I want to share with you, because this ties right into what I was talking about. Here is a very readable book of less than 100 pages. Counter Wokecraft by Charles Pincourt, writing under an alias, and James Lindsay. The subtitle is A Field Manual for Combating the Woke in the University and Beyond. Well, we know that's true, right? We call it woke. It's really much more insidious than that. The woke ideology views the world through a Marxist-inspired lens of systemic power dynamics, just as we talked about earlier, that divides us between the privileged and the oppressed. This colonization has successfully captured many of our noblest and most vital institutions through time-tested strategies and tactics. But this isn't a new thing. This has been going on literally for centuries, and we're just seeing it come to fruition in our own country. So pick up a copy of Counter Wokecraft. You can order it on Amazon. It's, like I said, less than 100 pages. This is potentially a Bible as we fight the culture wars, and fight them we must. Delighted I am that you joined us again for another episode of the Liberty Podcast on this 16th day of May. We hope that you will come back and see us the next time right here. Thank you very much, and have a great, great week.